Hey guys, and welcome to the Black British panel, or the UK Black panel, whichever you want to call it, where we talk all things relationships and pop culture. Well, today, my camera's not straight, but today we are discussing two various, I say various, but two very highly contested topics, because this happens to come up on the TL, Twitter, Instagram, usually does the rounds, and I thought we'll discuss it, right? So the first one we're talking about today is daddy issues in dating, or you can put it / mummy issues if you want it for the ladies to say about the men, in dating, and how that's affecting our current dating pool at the moment. And the second question or debate we might even have is more to do with social media and its impact on relationships. Does Instagram ruin relationships? You know, that double tap, is it causing issues? You know what I mean? Like, you know, is she posting too many photos on her page? Yeah. Is that photo that she posted, or his photo that he posted, is it too much? That's the question we're asking today. So we're gonna have a real conversation. I'm joined by some familiar faces as well, who have been on the channel before. If you've been with us for a long time, you know these faces already. But I'm gonna let them introduce themselves one by one. But before I do, make sure you're doing us a massive favor. You're liking it, you're sharing it, you're subscribing to this channel as well. Okay, all right. And just wanted to say this as well for the ladies out there, because every time I do a panel, y'all be telling us that the men are not up to scratch and that women are making more money than men. So do you know what I've done? I'm gonna put my cash up there, scrolling at the bottom. Since y'all are making more money than the men, I need you to start supplying my lifestyle. I'm a sugar baby, so start supplying the sugar ladies. Okay, all right, because y'all be telling us all the time women are outdoing men. Well, I want to be sugared up. So just want to put it out there. All right, cool. Let's let me introduce my fabulous guests. I'm gonna go from you, Ira. If you introduce yourself, let them know who you are. I know I've already said your name, but I do this every time. But say your name. I say it all the time. Who you are, what you do for one, and where you're from.
Okay, so my name's Ira. I'm from Kent. I'm a professional footballer, and I've written a book called What is a Man? And I do a few other things like fashion, coaching, mentoring, and like pastoring and stuff like that as well. So yeah, just a few things.
Love that. Love that. Thank you very much, Ira. Jeff, talk to them, baby.
Hi, everybody. Name is Jeffrey. I'm a second-year mental health student, but also part-time spoken word artist. Go by the name Jeff's Avenue, or Jeff for short. Poet, and also a content creator into all sorts of different content. That's what I do, and I'm from London.
Mackety Mac.
Max. I like conversation, and I'm based in the Midlands.
Wow, Midlands, baby. Jay.
How you doing, everyone? A lot of you have seen me before, but you're definitely going to get to know more of me. My name is Jason. I'm from London. My day-to-day, I'm an intelligence analyst, but I'm also working on a men's ministry called King, which stands for Kingdom Need of God, Kingdom Need of Greatness. You've heard a lot of what I have to say, so I'm going to continue giving it to you.
Love that.
Nice.
Love that. Nice, short, and simple. All right, cool. Let's get into some conversation. I know my internet's trying to play me tonight, but we're not gonna let it win. Listen, let's get some conversation tonight. All right. So, daddy issues in dating. Okay, daddy issues in dating. When you hear this term, daddy issues, what do you hear? What are you hearing? What does that mean to you when you hear the term daddy issues? Daddy, you know, what does it mean to you personally? Ira, you're laughing, so you're going first. Go for it. Shall not
Okay,
laughed.
daddy issues. I think to me it means that there's a void that needs to be filled. I think often we talk about, the absence of a father, the absence of a present father. But sometimes I know that it can also be the presence of an absent father that can cause daddy issues. So he's there, but he's not really there. So when a young man or young woman is desiring for a certain amount of attention, they then end up going into relationships with that vulnerability because they haven't received the attention, whether it's training or discipline or, you know, whatever it is that they believe a father is supposed to provide. They go into a relationship unhealed from those things and end up now seeking for, I don't want to always say a father figure, but they seek what they missed the most. For example, if you look at a hostage, in a hostage situation, what was the thing that they were rid of the most is control. So when they leave a hostage situation, the thing that they hold tightest to is control. They want to control everything about their lives, about their time, about their space, about the people around them. It's just the same as people who have daddy issues. If they didn't get attention, the thing they desire most is attention. So whoever gives them the most attention is who they're going to go for. And often what we find is, you know, that could be in an abusive relationship, but because attention is what they're getting, oh, he tells me he loves me, or, you know, even though she calls me ugly, at least she calls me something, you know, you're getting something, you're getting attention, some need is being filled, and ultimately that ends up in you being so vulnerable that you put yourselves in situations that can end up killing you. Even if it's not physical death, you know, there's different types of death: spiritual death, emotional death, mental death, even relational death. You don't no longer desire a relationship after being in such a toxic one. So yeah, that's what comes to mind.
Appreciate it. Jeffrey, daddy issues.
I think daddy issues speaks to, as Ira said, a void that needs to be filled. I think it also speaks to dysfunctionality that happens when you feel that there is something missing that you may have experienced from either an absent father, or even if you are in a two-parent household situation where your dad is there, he might be present, as in physically present, but he's not mentally present. There are some people, men and women, that go through daddy issues because there are negative behaviors that they take upon themselves based upon maybe how their fathers had treated them. So let's say you're dealing with a father that's emotionally absent or dismissive towards you. I mean, we can all speak to it, especially if you come from a particular household or culture where men are not taught to express their emotions, or they're not taught to nurture your emotions in a way where you feel valued or validated by how you feel. So what tends to happen is, oh, my dad, he never did this for me, so why should I go and treat a woman a certain type of way, or why should I treat a man a certain type of way? So because you did not get the emotional validation from your father, you felt like your father just dismissed how you were feeling about certain things. You take on that negative energy, and then it becomes the thing that you also give onto other people. Because how can you give someone something that you never received? Yeah.
I like it. Max. Strong
Yeah,
start
to
for
give
the
a
boy.
bit of a wider take, I would say any bad fruit that is from a seed that was planted in your childhood. So just however you were raised and the experiences you've had, those have effectively made you who you are today or influenced who you are today. And the ones that are stemming from kind of negative experiences, whether the lack of something or the presence of something that now manifests negatively, I could put that under daddy issues or mummy issues.
Thank you, Max. Like it. Go for it, Jay.
So I think if we look at it here first, as in an absentee parent creates those issues that all of you have mentioned in general, whether it's a mum or a father, right? But because of the intricate, you know, food, if I say, that you give your child, the outcome of having an absentee father can often be different, you know, than the issues that come with an absentee mother. And because most of the time it's the mum who is taking a child and raising a child, and the dad is off doing whatever he's doing, that's why we see a lot more issues that come with the father. But it can happen in both ways. And to me, quite simply, it's not just the things that you're saying in terms of that direct negative influence, but it's also the other things that usually come with it, such as neglect in the household, such as a misunderstanding of identity, misunderstanding of who they actually are. You know, when they go out into the world and they try to, as some of you mentioned, try to replace the lack of relationship with another relationship, the things that happen in there, because whether that's minimal standards, whether that's a lack of boundaries, whether that's, you know, you're looking around trying to fill a hole in your life. All these things create other things. So to me, daddy issues isn't just between the father and their child, but it's also a lifestyle that usually comes with it as that person navigates in the world.
Okay, I like this. Strong starts out here. Lifestyle, he also said. Well, okay, well, just going back onto you, what do you say lifestyle? Just expand on that a little bit more. What do you mean it comes with a lifestyle? What are you saying? Is it that, are you saying those people that say soft life? Is that what you're trying to say? You trying to out them people there?
Yeah.
The one that's the
No,
one that
man.
says soft life.
Not
Is
at
that what
all,
you're
bro.
trying to say, Jay? Jay, is that who you're coming for?
Not at all. Not at all. Not
Huh?
at all. Like,
He wants problems.
nah,
He wants
Innit?
problems always.
I don't mind the problems, you know. I
Violence.
can handle it all. I don't mind the problems. But my take is this: as human beings, we're creatures of habit, and we can see patterns that are happening in the world, and we can see, like, I got to a point in my life where I could tell someone has daddy issues before they even tell me. You know, I even got to a point where I can tell that they've been abused as a child, for example. You know, before they would actually tell me, because there's certain patterns of behaviors that the majority of people have. You know, and it happens in women and men, slightly different, but it happens in women and men. So when I say lifestyle, that type of negative influence does affect the choices that you make in life. As a woman, most people, it affects the type of men that they date and the reasons why they date them and the reasons why they stay in these rubbish, poor relationships, the reason why they're begging for someone's attention, the reason why they don't understand the situationship is not a committed relationship. You know, there's different rules that are at play. You know, the reason why they don't create boundaries throughout their life. You know, some women use sex in order to keep a guy around, for example. Like, we see this all the time, and these patterns of behavior. You know, when we usually see women who are very promiscuous, one of the things that they say is, I have a terrible relationship with my father. I worked in the criminal justice system. Around 70 to 80% of the men that I spoke to have terrible relationships or no relationships with their fathers. With a lot of the women that I spoke to in the course of my work, a lot of them had no or terrible relationships with their fathers. So for the most part, it does affect the decisions of that child. That's what I mean, the lifestyle. It's not just one or two things. It's up until the point that they decide to heal and be different. The choices that they make in relationships, in life, in friendships, in even their perspectives are going to be affected.
And sorry, Kojo, to add on to Jay's point, when it comes to dad issues, you'll be surprised that when it comes to kids, if you are not getting love in the household, you'll always find love out there somewhere else. Sometimes there are kids that will even use teachers, mind you, that are not even their kid. There are teachers that now become sometimes other kids, their parents. They become parents of these kids. They are literally, the dad's issues don't even stop there for that reason. I mean, I've met children who, because they didn't have father figures, because they didn't have someone that was present for them, their daddy issues, they would, if you don't get love somewhere in your first household, you will find it somewhere else. It'll just attach itself to different things. And also, I think with dad issues, it creates all sorts of attachment styles as well. There are some kids who become, I don't know, fearful, avoidant. Some of them who don't want to even be involved in a relationship because they don't know who to trust. If you never had a dad that you can trust in, how can you also expect to trust other people in relationships as well? There are people, like you said, women who become sexually promiscuous because they never had a father figure in their life to teach them how they're supposed to be treated as women. So it also bleeds its way into all sorts of attachment styles. And also you may be looking for other people to turn to as father figures as well, depending on what or whatever it is you're seeking for.
Okay. I like that. So just to stick to the lifestyle, I wanted someone else to also add to this lifestyle of someone who has daddy issues, because I like that point you make. It's probably not the right word when I say lifestyle, but I guess some of the tendencies that come along with the daddy issues. You know what I mean? Because I think you mentioned some. So I wanted to see if someone else could add a bit more to that conversation too, in terms of some of the tendencies that typically that seem to come along with the daddy issues as well. So I think it will help a lot of people. You know what I mean? So anyone want to add to that aspect of things, the tendencies? Yes,
I
I will
think
go for it.
I think for guys, in particular, I think it stems from the identity, because obviously we get our identity from our dad. That's our mirror image of what we're supposed to look like when we grow up. You know, okay, this is what, obviously my last name is Jackson, so this is what a Jackson man looks like. You know, you get, even if you're not taught what your identity is, you see it in what your father looks like. You see it in how your father does life, you know, how he treats women, you know, how he identifies with his masculinity, how he, you know, portrays his masculinity. You then begin to form and do life based upon those things. Now, if you don't have that, you're then, as they would say, peeing in the wind, because you have no guide. You have no direction as it pertains to your identity. You don't have a something to imitate. You know, if we want to go biblical, Paul talks about imitate me as I imitate Christ. You know, if the Father cannot be imitated, how do we then, as young men, how do we find somebody to imitate, or how do we then, what is our criteria? Because if it's not a father, there's probably an older brother. And as we know, older brothers usually don't know what they're doing either, because they're still trying to figure it out. So you're following somebody on a journey who hasn't quite got the lived experience necessary to be able to help you to navigate waters that they're still struggling with. Whereas if it's a father, although they may still be struggling with areas of identity because of, you know, whether it's rejection issues that they had when they were younger, or certain traumas, usually they've got to a place now, especially if they've got a wife, kids, and, you know, things that they're, you know, they've achieved or established in their lives. There's some, you know, key cornerstones and key milestones that they've reached in their lives that will help you to kind of set, you know, your charter for, okay, this is what a man looks like. If you don't have that, the nearest person you find is whoever calls you in and whoever makes you belong. You know, when you look in America, the majority of the young boys that don't have fathers, or whose fathers are drug addicts or this or that, they go to gangs. Why? Because even though we're men, what are we looking for? We're looking for belonging. We're looking for someone or something to show us the way. You know, we talk about all the time as men that, you know, we're leaders of the pack and all of that rubbish that was going around social media. But if we're real, we are actually followers, because we're looking for someone to follow so we can see what the right way is. If we don't have that, then we have to navigate the waters of life by ourselves, figuring it out as we go along. And that's why you see people go to jail, or you see people get involved with drugs, or you see people get involved with sex and all of that sort of stuff before their time, because they're trying to find out, okay, you know, there's 5 or 6 people in my life who are doing life a certain way, so that must be the right way. You know, we go to the majority rather than, as the scriptures again talk about, listening to your father's instruction. If you don't get an instruction manual from your dad, who are you going to get one from? You get one from the world, or you get one from, you know, the leader of the gang, or you get one from the older brother that's older than you. So you assume, you know, well, he's the man of the house. Let me just listen to what he has to say. But there's a reason why God instituted, you know, the 2-parent household and the 2-parent marriage, you know, the man and the woman, the dad and the mum, because there's certain things that a father brings that can help to navigate a certain lifestyle that you're supposed to live. You know, if the man is leading the house correctly, then things begin to fall in line a lot easier. You know, again, the scriptures talk about, if you want to spoil a man's goods, first you have to bind the strong man. So by the strong man being outside the house, by the man being in prison, by the man being a deadbeat, by the man, you know, leaving the house or leaving the woman, or, you know, whatever he's involved in, and leaving that void, how then do you expect your goods to not be spoiled? Does that make sense? You know, when we see these scriptures, they're not jokes. Like when you look at percentages, like Jay was talking about, they're not, that's not bants. You know, this is not a coincidence. The scriptures talk about this, and it helps us to navigate now how we do life and make decisions for the future generations. We don't, as men, I don't think we think as long term as we should, you know, because we're doing life for me and mine is usually me. It's not me and my future wife, my future son. How do I make decisions that benefit my future son? So the lifestyles that they live, or the way that we live when we have daddy issues, is we actually have no direction. We have no direction, we have no guide, we have no instruction. And then that's usually how we end up living lawless lives, where we just get involved in anything. So that's what I'd say.
Appreciate it, Aaron. Anyone want to add on this lifestyle? Max, I don't know if you've spoken the lifestyle part of in the tendencies, sorry. Thank you.
Not really, but what at least comes to mind is the idea of what a woman may look for from a father, and even what women look for in terms of relationship. I feel like security is such a big thing, and that can start at home. Like your father's affirmation is weighty. That gives you so much security. A woman that is secure does not consider every option, whether that be romantically, whether that be in business, whether that be concerning her life, concerning her time. A secure woman handles herself differently. And maybe some of this stuff is traced back to, did I receive that security? Was I safe in my upbringing to be confident in who I am today? And those things, those things that flow together.
Appreciate it, Max. Go for Jay.
Right, Max, that I have to give a clap for that bar there about security. I have to say, yeah, because what that makes me think of is something that, and I'm going to relate this to God, right? That a particular woman said to me, for her, how can she trust God, who is the unseen, when she can't even trust the man who are seen? And when she said that to me, that gave me an understanding of how she operates in life. She doesn't have that security in her life whatsoever. So when it comes to, living a Christian life and praying, but ultimately trusting in God, it was at the time, it was extremely hard for her to do, because it's almost like I can't trust any man. So how am I going to trust someone who, is almost like I can't really relate. I can't really open myself up. I can't really be vulnerable, because the moment I do that, I'm going to be a mess. That was her mindset. She went into a real spiritual crisis because of it. And so when you talk about that security, security does wonders for everyone. But when you look at women and how they operate, yeah, because there's a lot of women who are looking for a certain type of guy who may provide that security, but they'll take that security over the other issues that come with being of a certain type of man. And it creates problems. We don't live, like, the way I look at it, we don't live in biblical times, right? We don't live in the times where, when it came to, those times wasn't relationships, it was you're single and you're married, all this boyfriend girlfriend stuff. It's still new school when it comes to God, right? And it's like, marriage then was about duty, was about honor, was about purpose, getting together. Yeah, there was love at times, but we know how marriage was. Whereas now in our generation, we put so much emphasis on feelings, right? And I'm not saying what's right or what's wrong with it. What I'm saying is what that's led us to is to lead with that, which is why we put ourselves into these situations looking for things that are going to replace what we do feel that we're missing at times. Sometimes we don't even realize it. When we start talking about our individual experiences, I will talk about mine and what I realized 10 years later in regards to my lack of relationship with my father and what I was doing when it came to relationships. And it's something that, for us to really think about, because when I came to Christ, I didn't see it as it's a struggle for me to build a relationship with God. It made me want to build a relationship even more, quite simply because I felt like he is going to replace what's missing. And even with my pastor as well, it made me listen out even more to his wisdom. I'm not the type of person that would say, pastor is God. As Christians, let's stop that behavior, right? But it made me understand the wisdom that actually was coming, and actually realizing, wow, he actually gives me better advice than my dad, because because it's going to help me live a better life, and especially a better life for God, where that's not my dad's advice. So for me, I didn't grow up with that security of, okay, I'm learning from my dad. So another thing before I stop, a lot of us have had to learn how to live life on our own, like we didn't have a father, even though they may have been in the house. We've had to create, we've had to start anew. We didn't get that line that the Bible talks about parents leaving an inheritance for their children, or like Paul saying to the Corinth church, why are you giving me something? No, I'm coming to give you. I should be giving you. Like, a lot of us didn't get that. So that's where that security comes into it. And it's such a big issue that a lot of people, like you're saying, Ira, a lot of men need to understand the long-term effects of what they're doing. Like, selfishness is too much now. That's me, man.
Yeah, I'm definitely hearing you guys. You guys are you're breaking it down. You know what I mean? Breaking it down. I want to ask a more personal question now. You know, and I'll take a lead role in this. I want to know if anyone has any daddy issues. Does anybody have any daddy issue? Any? You know, it doesn't have to be the deepest, but you know, can you spot maybe you can spot some of your own, maybe you have some, you know, and just be able to share it, you know, because I think sometimes we do talk about abstract, you know, where we deal with other people, but you know, if we've got our own, that would be might more helpful to give a bit more personal account in terms of how it really does affect us, you know, in our daily dealings as well, you know. Yes, Jeffrey.
Daddy issues. I would say that I've had my fair share of daddy issues over the years. Daddy issues. One is I hate being when my emotions are belittled. That is my biggest pet peeve. When I've told my dad things that I go through, or when I'm trying to explain to my dad about some things that are near and dear to my heart, and he'll be and has been dismissive. He no longer does that. He's more attentive, but that was one of my biggest pet peeves, because this is my opinion. When you shut your child out, what makes you expect? How can you expect your children to come and tell you what the type of person, right? Whether it's you taking out your frustration upon them, or you're just simply saying, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And it's like you're putting a wall in front of me, but you expect me to come to you and actually have a relationship with you. But when you do that, it creates a barrier where I will not be as forthcoming about what I go through the next time, necessarily speaking. And that's something that I've had to go through, whether it's major or minor things, right? And I'll give you a saving grace for something that my dad did that I, up to this day, it has made a positive effect upon me. One time, my dad was just telling me something simple as, you know, Jeff, you need to ensure that you're calling your brother and sis, checking up on them. I'm like, cool. But I've been doing that. I've been doing that continuously over and over again. And it's not the first time he's told me this. And then I just said, look, Dad, how many times you got me telling me this? I continuously do that more often. You put this expectation upon me to do something, but yet it's not reciprocated. That's not fair. And then my dad said something. He said, I understand, son. Those words, up to this day, it warmed my heart because it felt like cathartic. Do you know how it feels when your dad actually listens to where you're coming from and just says, I understand where you're coming from? There are some people, yeah, that never experienced that. It's like my way or the highway. I don't want to listen to what you have to say. When your emotions are belittled, yeah, it's not a good feeling. So that's just an example.
Jeffrey, I really appreciate it, man. You sharing that, bro. Like big time. That's major, bro. Anyone else want to share their experience? I don't mind sharing mine, but if anyone else wants to share their own experience, yes, Jay, go for it.
Well, as everyone's staying quiet. By the way, you don't have to. It's a sensitive topic. I know you don't have to, but because it can help people, you know, that's why I don't mind talking about my life, right? So I mentioned it earlier, the things that I realized, and I'm the type of guy where, you know, a lot of people say, "Oh, Jason can handle those like hard to deal with women and etc." And by the way, guys, you don't have to. He's not the son of a man to deal with difficult people. That's not a son of a man. Let's stop that, please. But anyway, let's move on. And as they say, you know, hurt people hurt people. Now, I've never gone out there and hurt someone. But what I realized was I was attracting mostly women who had daddy issues because I had daddy issues. So for those who watch Love is Blind and saw Marshall's antics about, you know, he's being Captain Saver, you know, in some respects, I became a type of man who didn't mind trying to stand in the gap, even though I'm not trying to fill the whole of, you know, someone's father, etc. But I became someone where it's almost like I had to become this knight in shining armor. But in doing that, I was neglecting myself. Now, the reason why I was doing that is because I was trying to, I guess, subconsciously prove that dealing with difficult people, dealing with challenging people, there's going to be a positive outcome that comes from it, as a way to show me that just enduring my dad and his behavior is one day going to pay dividends. One day he's going to make me feel loved. One day he's going to make me feel wanted. You know, there's times growing up where I felt like, was I adopted or something, the way he was treating me over minimal things, like he treated like he hated me. You know, that's the level of things that went. And to this day, I've never received an explanation. I just had to grow up and understand what that, like that. So I'm Ghanaian, right? So I'm first generation British. So I was born here. And a lot of that generation, the men don't know how to express their love, even to their wives. So I had to understand how he was brought up. And then when I met his dad, and this is a big grown man here, like older than I was. He was older at the time than I am now. And when he sat with his dad and I was there talking, you can see he was nervous, like he was playing with his hands. He was doing it. I thought, I've never seen my dad like that. So I had to understand like what's going on. And my granddad was talking to him like he was a stranger, like just some guy that came to visit him. Then I had to understand, oh, okay. I know how he was brought up. He doesn't know how to love me, his son, in a way that I need. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just acknowledging he doesn't know how to do that. So I need to stop putting that on him. Because by putting that on him and then allowing myself to become angry, resentful, bitter, and going out there and making those silly choices, number one, I'm not even able to fulfill my full potential, because we can't be looking at our parents like that in the first place. We know what the word says when it comes to that, you know. But at the same time, I had to learn to forgive in order to be able to make better decisions as a man, in order to be able to deal with certain things better. And I did that. You know, that's one of the reasons why I came to Christ, like just to understand what that means. And even last year, where we had a conversation, like I had to literally be principled, like be a man about it. He calls me the bailiff because I'm not afraid to say my piece. I'm never respectful, but I will tell him what's what. And he was saying all the types of things you can imagine. I'm not going to go into it here, but he was saying all types of things that you should never say to your son. But I said, I don't care what you say. I'm going to tell you the truth. He said he will never ever apologize to me. That's one of the things that he said, right? But that conversation didn't make me feel better, because I had already been feeling better. I just wanted to make sure he just knew how I felt. And from that day on, and it's like it's about a year now. You know what? From that day, he's never treated me negatively since that day. So I look at that as that's his apology. That's his acknowledgement, because he couldn't argue with what I was saying. So for me personally, being the man I am today is because of all of these things I've had to put in place as I've got older, or even up to last year, where I feel like I wish the man I am today is the man that I was for the past 15 years. Because the way I feel charged right now, I feel like I'm a lion, like I can take on anything. Like, and I'm going to achieve what I'm going to set out to achieve. Like I'm purpose driven. And I realized because of that lack of, you know, that direction and understanding from my father, I didn't have that growing up. So I had to really find it myself. So that's me, man.
Thank you for sharing that, Jay. I appreciate you. And Max, go for it. Yeah.
Wow, man. Wow.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jay.
sure. I think in terms of thinking how to process it, how to share it. So I would say growing up, both of my parents worked a lot. And I guess that's the typical, almost like immigrant story, right? Your parents are trying to hustle, they're trying to give you a better future, give you a life, give you opportunity. But I think from a child's perspective, at least for me, that was internalized as, why don't they want to be here? Why don't you want to spend time? Why do you not want to be around me? And that was something that I processed as, it's about me. It's about something that I'm doing wrong, or something that's missing in me, as to why they're not here. Not really seeing it from the practical point that I can see now as an older person of, you need money, you literally need to survive. They need to go out and hustle to give you the best opportunities. Otherwise, your life cannot be of a higher quality than theirs. But I think from that perspective, and internalizing that and thinking, okay, now what do I proactively have to do, whether in dating or in this part of my life, to keep people around? What do I then have to overlook? What do I then have to tolerate in order to not experience that distance or that space? So thinking that I can somehow now do something in order to maintain someone's attention or maintain their love. And that is quite a dangerous way to process it. But that was my experience of thinking, okay, maybe it's something I can do to keep, to maintain, to ensure. And I think that puts a lot of pressure on an individual. And it means that you overlook not even red flags, red flaming flags, flags that are burning, because you're like, it's okay, it's just going to give me heat. But no, like what you will tolerate because you don't want to effectively be alone, or you don't want them to leave, becomes a lot higher. So that's something I had to work through. And I think even now I don't like space in relationships. I just find it to be like, oh, like, why are they not here? Why can't we figure this out this way? So yeah, I think that's definitely something I've taken from childhood.
Sorry, Max, can I ask you something from that? From that dynamic, would you say you develop people pleasing tendencies then? Because you said that you're looking at, oh, I have to do things, to keep people in relationships. Like, so would that be more of like a people pleasing tendency then?
In a sense, but I would articulate it more like working for love. So in that sense, the concept of grace was really hard for me. Like, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Like, what needs to be done? So that's probably a type of people pleasing, right? Because if someone wants something, you're probably willing to do it. But I think it's more overlooking. So rather than people pleasing, it for me, it showed up more like neglect of, okay, I'll let that go. All right, I might need this, but I'll keep silent about that. And all right, okay, they've not done that again, even though I've asked for it. Okay, but it's not that essential, or I'll do it myself. So I think people pleasing probably would have been a nicer version, I think. But yeah.
Can I just quickly add to that before Ira, you go? Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Mac. What I forgot to say is that as part of my daddy issues, I was minimizing the things that the negative things that would happen to me, in terms of how women would treat me. Like, I was minimizing that abuse. I was minimizing things that shouldn't happen, that I would never let happen today. And it's simply because it's almost like, it's not that bad because I'm used to it in my house. And it's like, that's not the way it should be. When you mention about people pleasing, it's not about you, Max, right? But this is an understanding of what that looks like on a wider scale. I know Will Smith. We all document the issues that he had with his father, right? And, things growing up. And he became someone who would minimize certain things that are happening. He would, allow himself to be treated a certain way, to the point where, he has been emasculated, to the point where he's been embarrassed. And he's well documented the feelings towards his father, and where all of this, kind of stems from. So when we talk about daddy issues and we talk about lifestyle, that's a perfect example where first of all, he married the wrong person, but where throughout his life, he has admitted that he has done things continuously in order to feel love, in order to feel wanted. And that came from telling jokes. Then that jokes made him money, of which was able to help his family. And therefore, anyone who would try to, stop him making money through jokes, he was willing to kill. That's why the first Aunt Viv, he got rid of the first Aunt Viv and brought the second. Like, these things are our lifestyle until we start to sit down and say, do you know what? We can't live our lives like this anymore. Like, we have to truly love ourselves properly.
Yeah, but Jay, you actually touched on something. I think this is also the issue, which I think daddy issues affect how people see love. I think in our world today, people really don't understand what love truly is. And it becomes very performative, because when you lack love, or when you feel like your dad's or lack of dad has not shown you the way in terms of how to receive love, Christ-like love, because obviously you got First Corinthians talking about love is patient, love is kind. It's not self-seeking. Love always protects, love always perseveres. We take the performative aspect of love in terms of actions, and then we amplify it into something where we now feel I have to do so much in order to win somebody's attention and favor. So we act outside of ourselves in order to win people's favor. Like, it becomes a place where we now, as Max says, we normalize things we shouldn't even be normalizing. Like, or because our parents, maybe if you come from a household where your parents were unnecessarily tough upon you, or where they were emotionally dismissive or even emotionally abusive, you end up normalizing the toxicity, and then you take that behavior and then you bring it into other relationships, not realizing, nah, you have to do work upon yourself. But how do you figure that out when that toxic mindset is all that you've grown up with? So you have to do a lot of internal work to actually get out of that place.
Appreciate it, boys. Ira, go for it.
I think there's a couple of things that seem to be common. One of them I would say is affirmation addiction, which is this continual desire to be affirmed. And that can, manifest itself in people pleasing, all that sort of stuff. For me, I know it stemmed from my dad's very results driven. So you're only getting praise when you bring a result.
Oh, come on.
And so
Come on.
obviously I'm a football player. So school, yeah, cool. You get results in that. The second I start getting results in football, it changes the whole game. Like, it's like, boom, like the lights are flying off. Like, he's happy, life couldn't be greater. Then the second the results don't come, now my life is a mess. I'm distracted, I'm this, I'm that, I'm not trying hard enough or whatever. So I became like very, very like hard working, like not just hard working but beyond hard working, where to the point of I'd be training. Well, I was training when I was younger, I was training 20 hours a week from 4 years old. So then I get older, when I get to like 10, 11, and it's now like, no, you have to train more because you're not playing in the Prem, so you have to train more than them so that you can get to their level. Then I turn 16 and it gets even more mad. Like, you got to train 3-4 hours a day. And then you got to do other work that's football related, that's not on the pitch, but it's other work. Then it was 3 sessions a day. Like, it's just continually. But as I was continuing to get results, I wasn't clocking that there was an issue because I'm thinking, well, it works. Do you get what I mean? But then when the results start to fade, you start to fatigue, you start to get injured, and you're not being spoken to because you're not playing football at the moment. So you're not even. I remember when I was 19, I broke my foot, and I was out for 11 weeks. I didn't have one conversation with my dad, like not one. Bear in mind, we live in the same house. So for 11 weeks, and then I asked him afterwards, because literally when I got back from the hospital, and I had my assessment and they said, you're good to play. That's the first time he spoke to me. When I got back from the hospital, he said, oh, what did they say? And I said, oh, they said I'm fit to play now. And I can go back to playing football, etc., etc. And he was like, all right, cool. So who are you signing for? And I'm thinking, sorry, run it back. Where was this? We haven't spoken for 11 weeks and you're now like, you've got vim for me. You've got intensity. And he was like, what did we have to speak about? And I said, that's where my eyes truly opened. Like, they were open before, but like my eyes, like my eyelids went beyond my eyebrows and the bottom eye went to the teeth, because I was like, okay, I understood it before, but until we actually said it, it didn't really resonate. Like there is nothing more to this than transaction. Like, you keep getting me results in football and we will have a relationship. The second you don't, there is nothing for us here. Do you get what I mean? And so that then made me very results oriented in life, like in general. If I wasn't achieving something that day or that week or that month, like I'm not the sort of person, or I wasn't the sort of person that could have a to-do list and not have it finished by the end of the day. Like, everything had to be done. Like, it's just that sort of thing that creates this affirmation addiction, where people now you're working, you can't kind of like what Max said, where you're working with people's love, but not even just working with people's love, sometimes even working for attention. I remember being 17 and I would wear a certain suit, like suits to church every Sunday. Like, bear in mind, I'm in youth church, so why am I wearing a suit, please? Everyone's wearing trackies, but I'm the one that's here in a suit, in a bow tie. I'm looking good. But it wasn't until a couple of years later when I prayed and I was like, God, I really need to search myself to find out, why do I do what I do? because I listened to a sermon by Darius Daniels, and he says, in your relationship with God, you shouldn't just learn about God, but you should also learn about yourself. And so that just took me on a path where I was like, okay, I need to learn more about me. Who am I? And he was just like, you're extremely insecure. And I was like, I mean, that sounds really sad. Like, that can't be me. You know, look at what I'm doing. Look at how much I'm achieving. Da, da, da. But he was like, yeah, but you're doing it so that people will say, well done. Do you get what I mean? And it's not the same as the well done that we're going to get at the end of time when we go to see God and all that sort of stuff. But like, I was actually doing it so that I would get attention, I would get affirmation, and eventually that, you know, I would get all the praise and the achievements and stuff. Like, in the end, the achievements didn't really mean anything if nobody noticed. And so now it's kind of flipped where I don't really want to be in the limelight as much. Like, I've kind of gone the complete opposite way because I found that me, the true Ira, doesn't actually like that much attention. But it was because I was trained so much in, you know, when you get attention, like, it's almost like you should fight to desire attention, that I thought that that's just who I was. But now, like, I've understood more about myself where, like, I like to do things, but nobody know about them. Do you get what I mean? Like, I just like to do me. Like, even with my relationship, I kept it private, you know, like, for a long time, because it was like, I don't really, you know, as much as people are going to say, well done, or you got a woman, whatever, I didn't really want people in my business. I didn't want, like, all of this stuff attached to it. And so that's how I ended up learning about myself, is that healing from the daddy issues, you know, talking to God and learning more about myself helped me to understand that a lot of what I was manifesting and projecting is not who I actually was, but it was, you know, my trauma response.
Boy, oh boy, got deep in the dunya, innit? Got deep in the dunya. Y'all were bringing out them deep things, but no, for real. Like, y'all be hitting it. Ira, thank you. Obviously, I know me and Ira chopped it up like last year as well. So, you know, I was aware a little bit of your story as well. So, I appreciate you sharing that. You know, I think this is good conversation. I love this kind of stuff because I think, you know, we spoke about, you know, daddy issues, and we spoke about other people, but when you kind of bring yourself into it, it does make it so real, right? And it's interesting because, you know, there's five of us on this panel, you know, and I just, you know, sometimes God be doing some stuff, you know, you be wondering why it is the way it is, it's playing out the way it's playing out, but because sometimes God want to be able to touch some people in a particular way. So I appreciate you lot sharing your story as well. I mean, to be honest, if I quickly just interject with the daddy issue aspect, I think, and I come from a 2-parent home, you know, as well, and both parents are there, but much like Max, you know, they gotta work. Okay, they gotta work. Okay, I became a 3rd parent so quickly. I ain't never. I became a 3rd parent. I saw people walk. I became someone's first word. You know what I mean? Like, I'm changing nappies. I've seen green, yellow poo. I mean, I've seen it all. You know what I mean? Like, I've done potty training. That stuff is wild. Okay, but you know, one of the things that was, I guess, painful in the situation is more to do with the interactions. So the lack of interaction in terms of being present in pivotal moments. So, you know, dad and mom were there, but at those pivotal moments, things like, let's say, come to a recital, you know, I may be acting, you know, dad, can you come? I gotta work, you know, or, you know, I'm tired, so I can't really come. You know, he's working 2 jobs or whatever, mom's doing whatever, you know, very difficult. Mom did come a lot of times, but I wasn't looking for mom. No offense to mom, love you, but I wasn't looking for you. Okay, it's nice to see moms in the crowd, but I ain't looking for you. I'm looking for dad. Okay, so you know, that's whose approval I'm looking for. Okay, I want to hear his words, right? And you know, those times didn't happen, and I think just because also he reared me in a particular way that is to be very independent. You know, because he didn't have a father. His father left him early. You know what I mean? So, you know, he's reared by his mom. So he's kind of like teaching me whatever he knew, which is, let me rear you to be independent, because you never know what can happen in life. No one else got your back. You got to handle your own. that means, you know, if you go somewhere, his favorite line is, if you got yourself there, you can get yourself back. Yeah. So, you know, don't bother calling him if you're stuck somewhere, because he ain't picking up. Okay. Or he might pick up, but he ain't coming to get you. All right. That's changed, funny enough, because the youngest one, that ain't the same story they got. You know what I mean? Like, he be picking them up, collecting them, But my ass, if I went somewhere, oh, if you're stuck, find a way, you know? So a lot of that stuff, that kind of teaching was kind of embedded into me, very much yourself, Ira, as well, like similar enough. I think a lot of times you get praise for doing something, you know what I mean? I remember one time, listen, you know, this is where the affirmations was needed, you know? I remember one time, we do cleaning on Saturday, Ghanaian households. You know this thing. It's every Saturday. You wake up in the morning. Before you do anything, you have to clean the house. Okay, so don't think about anything else but clean the house, right? And I remember I started waking up mad early on a Saturday. I started waking up before everybody. I wake up by like 5, 6. By the time everyone's awake by 8, I've hoovered, I've mopped the floor, I've cleaned the dishes. Now, and here's my thing. My thing was, I just want him to come in and be like, hey, well done. I'm begging for it. Like, I'm literally begging for it. So when he started doing it, I just started doing it more. Just because I wanted the affirmation. Do you know what I mean? I wanted, you know, my son, well and truly pleased, as we get from our Lord and Savior. I wanted that. So I was chasing that a lot of the times, right? Trying to get more of that affirmation in terms of, you know, that interaction from him, because oftentimes the interaction is I want to say it's oftentimes when my mom, I'll talk a lot about with my mom and stuff like that, but with my dad, it's more of a case of, if it's not Bible, if it's not football, if it's not chores, my brother, there isn't much more we're going to talk about. Okay, so, you know, either because he's busy, or because, like, again, limited scope, because again, they got their own issues they're dealing with as well. So a lot of times I found myself like emotionally starved, but I had to just kind of like push it aside, you know, and just get on with it. You know, you can't cry about it, you can't complain about it, you can't moan about it. You know what I'm saying? And so I think how it really affected me, and I'll say something, I'm gonna say something real wild. Sometimes maybe it's a self-awareness aspect too. Sometimes I ask myself, this attention seeking, when is it too much? You know what I mean? Much like Ira, bro. I remember I asked myself, like, if you know me, you watch me on TikTok, sometimes I ask myself the question, am I dancing in public because I want to dance? Or am I dancing because I want the attention? And one thing I do, right, and listen, and I'll be real with you lot, right? There's not a day I've not seen when somebody's filming. I know when you're filming, because I've clocked you from early. Because part of it is a very hyper awareness. You become very hyper aware because you're used to sucking in their attention, right? So it stayed with me even till now. When I'm doing a TikTok, I'm already aware who's already. I've looked quick, real quick scan. Oh, you are filming already. You think you haven't seen? I've seen you. Don't worry about that. Keep filming. I appreciate you. You know what I mean? So part of it is almost narcissistic in some aspect. The need to want to be so attention filled, right? But it's because you've been starved from young. You've been invisible, and you're only visible when you do something. Do you know what I mean? So part of my mind is, I'm only visible when I do something. So I have to do something to be visible. And if I don't do something, then I'm not gonna be visible, right? So, and I'll tell you something that happened today, and I know that the attention deficit was kicking in. I met a wrestler called Bobby Lashley. I don't know if you guys know Bobby Lashley from WWE. He was in a gym in Birmingham today, right? They have a show in Birmingham, right? And in my head, I said, is that Bobby Lashley? He said, yeah. And I spoke to him. I said, hey, Bobby Lashley. He said, yeah. Cool. He went and sat down on the bench. I put my headphones on full blast, put the music up, and bust one move. I said, just in case he might open his camera, you never know, brother. I could be going global before you know it, blood. You know what I mean? You never know. Just never know. But part of it, I was thinking, yes, I could go global, but part of it was also like, this is attention deficit again. I think part of it, I have to be honest, part of it is also you a show off. You want attention. You know what I mean? And because of his status, if he gives you attention, it will be an affirming thing for you. You know what I mean? Somebody has noticed you of stature. And I think those are how the daddy issue plays a role specifically for me in that aspect. And I think even my emotional detachment sometimes, not sometimes, emotional detachment that happens in relationships is also from that. The easiness to kind of like separate myself from emotions because it makes me feel weak or vulnerable. And, you know, I don't like being put into that place. I mean, I've started work on it, but it's like I realize how much the daddy issue affects that. Anyone else like it's similar to that? You know, being feeling like you're almost invisible kind of thing. Is that something that is? I don't know if anyone else kind of feels that way, but I thought I asked that question.
Yeah.
Jaden.
But do you know what? I'll address that secondly, so I don't want to forget the first point as well. So I've got 3 points to make. The first point is about mummy issues because we haven't talked about that. When it comes to women, what I've seen is a lot of women, they become like their mums and treat men the same way. When it comes to guys, I've seen a lot of guys not want to date women who look like their mum. We can go into that more in terms of what that looks like because the conversation that a lot of people are not having. But that's where I've seen mummy issues playing guys. So where I'll come to the question that you asked about feeling invisible. And I'm kind of with Ira on this one. So my dad has never said that he's proud of me ever in his life. He's never given me that type of affirmation, never given me any type of love like that. And the only time he was happy and excited is when I was playing football. And I played football from, I think, 7 to about 17. When I stopped playing football, you should come and see this man. Wow, I've never seen him so upset in my life. But I realized that it wasn't, he didn't ask me how I felt or nothing like that. It was because in beforehand he was going cha-ching. When I said I'm stopping playing football, then all of a sudden his monetary dreams came crashing. And that's when he started treating me a certain way that I highlighted earlier, right? So when it comes to feeling invisible, I get what you're saying, Coach, because I felt like he's never seen me. He's always ridiculed me. He's always, treated me like I wasn't good enough. Even when I said I'm trying to do certain things business-wise, typical African man, what do you know about business and things like that? And I'm looking at him thinking, you're just like, because like growing up, I'm a healed person. Like I personally didn't seek approval from him. So there's certain things that he did that I guess didn't affect me in a particular way, at least in our relationship, but affected me in different ways, right? But I always looked like, in just generally in my life, like when it comes to feeling approval, I got to the point where I was numb to approval, where someone might say something good, but my body doesn't react in the way that they think I should, or maybe I think I should. I might not be, yeah, or thank you, etc. And sometimes it's almost like I'm saying thank you just to be polite. But your affirmations don't make me feel, like Superman. And the reason why I say that is because I've had to become someone where I make myself feel like Superman. However, it's a double-edged sword because I make myself feel like Superman when I've done amazing things. When I feel like I've messed up, I don't feel like Superman. I feel like rubbish. And that hurts, inside. So, and the last thing I'll mention is I've got 2 daughters, one's 15 and one's 4. So because of my experiences, and what I've seen in women that I've dated, I show up differently for them. There is no one that can say that I neglect my children. I'm not the father that I need to be. Like my daughter's 15, she'll still put her head on my shoulder. Sometimes people say that we talk like we're best friends. With my youngest, I always take her at different places. But I make sure, do you know what? I don't care what's happening out in the world. For me personally, I want to make sure that they feel me. I'm there. I'm present. My oldest daughter lives with me anyway, but the youngest one, I make sure when I'm around her, she knows I'm there. And she will climb on top of me. She'll do all sorts. And that's where I've come into my own to say, okay, I need to make sure that I'm healed to the point where I don't put this on my children. So that now I have my children here, I'm going to love them the way that they need to be loved. So I don't want them going through what I went through. I know what happens. I see it. So why am I going to continue being that? So that's me understanding what the future is going to be like. Like when it comes to me leaving legacy, what type of legacy do I want to leave? And that's part of it. I want my children and my wife, by the way, to make sure to understand that, yes, this man, he loved me. He didn't love me with just the words or material things, but he loved me by his natural, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual actions. That's me.
I like that point that you made at the end, Jay. And I think that's essential. I think that's something obviously we haven't talked about, but I think the positive spin on daddy issues is the mental effect that it can have on us and how we view future generations, because trauma can lead you in two directions. You know, your trauma response could be, you know what, there's no way that things get better from this. You know, I'm just going to carry on. This is the way things are supposed to be. I was treated like trash, so everybody else is going to be treated like trash by me. But the other way to look at it, which obviously, if we are doing Romans 12 too in our daily lives, is that we actually flip it and go, if that's what I've experienced, how do I use the things that I've experienced to now ensure that my kids don't experience what I have? You know, most people try to do it when it comes to money. You know, oh, I was broke when I was growing up, so I don't want my kids to be broke. So that's why they start a business, or, you know, that's why they get a Fortune 500 company job. But have we actually looked at it in terms of values and principles and even emotional health? You know, if you're going and getting all of this money and thinking that because your dad may not have provided financially, you know, you have to make sure you do. But was there an element of emotional provision that you've missed because of that? Was there an element of safety that you've missed because of that? Because provision is not just going and making sure you're bringing home the bacon. It's making sure that, you know, your children feel safe, they feel loved, they feel cared for, they feel like there's an environment where they can be vulnerable. You know, it's things like that that if we haven't received that, it's okay, how do we now respond to that? And how do we now flip the script and change the narrative? And if you want to get ultra spiritual, break the cycle to make sure that, you know, the generations of men that's come before us don't inform the generation of men that come after us, but instead they give us all the how not tos, and we live our lives with the how tos going downwards from there.
Appreciate it. Max, what are you going to add? Wait, before you go, Jeff, because I think Max was going to add earlier on.
Just on the back of the legacy point that Jay made, though, I think that's the point. Fathers always leave a legacy, and the legacy may be your issues that then get passed down. Your legacy may be your presence, it may be the affirmation you gave, whatever, but just knowing, like, you will always leave a legacy. So just be mindful of what that is. But to your first question, Kodra, about the invisibility, I think for me, it takes me to when parents are busy, they've got finite amount of energy. So if they're giving all their energy to their job, they come back and they give you scraps. And if you grow up eating scraps every day, that becomes your diet, that becomes what you're used to, that becomes what sustains you and what you live off of. So then you only require scraps. But naturally, if you're thinking physically, if you're thinking of food, how skinny do you become when you're not eating well? So yes, you become invisible, but only because what sustains you is so small. And so then you go out into the dating world, you go out into the relational world, and you require scraps. So what? Oh, you didn't call me? Ah, well, I live off scraps. So in that sense, I don't have much accountability for you because whatever you give me will be acceptable.
Amazing.
Facts.
Max, done it again. Yes, Jeffrey.
Nah, I was going to talk on Ira, a while ago you talked about, you know, affirmation addiction, right? I'm just going to ask a question. Have any of you ever seen Fences by Denzel Washington? I'm just curious. Like, do you ever see like the dynamic that happened between, you know, the dad and the son, basically? And that question that the son basically asks, Dad, why don't you like me? And, you know, the character that Denzel Washington played, he was tough, he was stern, he was basically trying to get his son to understand, you know what, it's my job, I don't have to like you, listen, I'm just here to do a job that which is simply to look after you, da. And when I saw that, I'm not gonna lie, I felt a certain type of way. I was triggered in some instances because I'm not saying that my dad in any way, shape, or imagination is like that, but there was some dynamics in which I could see areas in that, some, not all. And I think the reason being is that sometimes when you are not getting that emotional protection, because we do say that obviously in our day and age, when you come from immigrant households and they're focusing so much on financial provision, cool. Meanwhile, they're forgetting the emotional aspect of it, where they need to tend to your emotional needs as well. So you can have all the affluence in the world, but if you don't have a connection with your parents, with your mom and your dad, it leaves you just simply taking the scraps that they offer towards you. I remember like one time my dad, he would drive me to these rich places, show me, son, you got to make sure that you're making a lot of money so that way you can get this and that, this and that. But I actually valued more of the time that he spent just teaching me about life and telling me his life stories and things that he's been through. That is what I tend to value. And I think in the generation of today, a lot of kids, if they were to be asked, they would actually trade the time that they spent with their parents that actually would listen to where they're coming from, more so than just simply making a whole bunch of money, because money is definitely important. But I think, again, it goes back to what we define by protection and provision. It's more than just simply finances. And I think, like you rightly said, Max, that all of these things, these negative aspects become legacies. Legacy is what you leave behind. So when it comes to the toxic behaviors and certain practices that our parents have done, these things get left behind from generation to generation. But like you rightly said, Ira, it's up for us to decide how we change it. Are we going to continue the cycle? Are we willing to break the cycle to have a whole different dynamic?
Can I add two things as well? One is a story. The other thing for me is, do you know what? I realize here that because Kim C asked a question about becoming someone. Sorry, about needing someone who, I'm assuming Kim C is a woman, but needing someone who sees her rather than someone who just kind of wants everything else, right? See, so that's the same for me. If I don't feel like someone sees me as a person, so I know myself, I'm very confident in myself. I carry myself a certain way. I have a lot of respect. Like, I know myself. So someone doesn't see me for me, there's not an ounce of anything that I have that I want to give them. And if I feel that's who they are in a relationship towards me, once it's broken, I guess this is my toxic trait, I will cut you off. And by the way, once I establish you know what you're doing, because they're the ones usually, you know how it goes. Once I establish, do you know what you're doing? Are you sure? I will cut them off. Because I have not got time for anyone who doesn't see me, who doesn't see my value, right? I'm not interested. I'm not going to put myself, through that. There's no point. So I will move on. The funny thing is, to their surprise, they might be used to guys, calling them 100 times a day, begging them. I go radio silent. You're not going to get that from me. I have too much self-respect, right? But it's all of a sudden, months or years later, all of a sudden they see me. Now they want to say things that they should have said to me at the time. But at that point, I've cut you off. I no longer have anything towards you. You're just that person who's made me realize that you're not for me. And that's one thing that I realized has been a big pattern in my life. But on a separate note, before I wrap it up, because I know we got to move on to the debate. When I think of some of these issues, I'm trying to think of what do things practically look like. So I mentioned situationships. I have a friend that was in a 6-month situationship, right? And one of the things I said to her that she wasn't happy about is that you were both as bad as each other. Because of the guy's daddy issues, he easily, and I think Jeffrey, you talked about with attachment styles, it's almost like his missus has to become his mum, and he attaches himself to that. And he was going through a madness at the time. Even though this wasn't his missus and he wasn't promising her commitment, he still used her emotionally to go through those moments. So she felt naturally, she's doing she's doing what I should do for my man, but they was never in that situation. For her daddy was around, but he emotionally and mentally wasn't there. And now he's been in another country for a couple of years trying to look after some other people. So for her, emotionally, she's just all over the place, and she's had to go through therapy and counseling. When he said, the guy said, I can't give you commitment. This girl, this is 6 months, by the way. She was acting like she was about to commit suicide. She was saying that she loves this guy. She's in love with this guy. I had to spend time on the phone talking to her because I was concerned, like how she was crying, etc. And me and another one of our friends were thinking, how do you get to this place in 6 months that you're ending like this is the end of a 20-year marriage that you're so in love with a guy? But what we had to realize just by listening more, that breakup was a reflection of the abandonment that she had felt from my dad. So she would say things like, you're supposed to be here. And it's like, who are you talking about? But what she was actually talking about is her dad. and that guy not giving her what she felt she needed, because she will say all the time, he reminds me of my dad, he reminds me of my dad, he can give me what my dad can't. You know, but the fact that he wasn't willing to, you know, give that all the way, that tore her apart. And in her mind, she was in love with a guy, where it wasn't the fact that he was in love with a guy, it's the fact that you was attached. You were attached to the emotions that you felt you was receiving from this guy. You was attached to the hole that this guy was filling, even though he could never truly fulfill it at all. That wasn't his place anyway. That's not any man's place. It's not any woman's place. But he could never give her what she wanted, and he made that clear from the beginning. But she emotionally fell into that trap, and that's something that happens a lot of the times when it comes to daddy issues, like keeping ourselves or accepting situations or circumstances that we should never. And Max, you talked about the minimal standard. If I do this, maybe this person's gonna do this, or this person's giving me so little, it's okay, it's no problem, it's okay, because you don't know what it means to actually be treated with the proper love. And I always say to people, I really do pray that you receive that from someone, because when you receive that, your life will be transformed.
Boss, fam. And Jay, to add on to your point about attachment, I'm just reading something here that you mentioned that from what I'm seeing, there's different types of attachment based upon the types of fathers that you're dealing with. You've got people that are fearful, avoidant, anxious, preoccupied. So that be in this person was very clingy, obsessed to the point where she wanted to stay in this type of relationship, but not understanding that it wasn't good for her. And I think it also adds to the point that, again, people generally do not understand what love actually is. Because I think what's happening is that people confuse love with obsession, and they're not the same. When you have love for someone, there's a balance. That's why the Bible says, love your neighbor as you love yourself, not love your neighbor before you love yourself, or love your neighbor after you love yourself. Like, what's happening is that people are having some perverted form, a twisted form of love, and becoming obsessive, putting people up on pedestals. Because really, when you think about it, the people that we look up to, that we never had the chance to have a full emotional connection with, are fathers and mothers. But if we feel like they were lacking in some areas, we turn to wrong people as well. So it becomes a case where sometimes we become so clingy. Guys, we do it. We do it with girls that we know are not good for us. We know they show toxic behaviors, but because of the fact that, you know what, especially if you're one of them ones where you're in a relationship for the first time and you don't know how to deal in dating, you will make passes, you will allow certain things that you know you shouldn't be allowing for certain people, but because you think you love this person, you will tolerate a whole bunch of, let me not talk too much.
Yep, I hear you on that. All right, listen, we got to move it on because we're passing over time. But this was a really good conversation. You know, I didn't, it's gonna be good. The topic's nice. You just never know how good it can be. And so yeah, really appreciate you guys sharing your experiences and your thoughts and some solutions as well within that as well. So much appreciation for that. Good conversation. We may have to revisit that again a little bit later on as well, down the line through these panels. So I know they said about mummy issues as well. So, you know, we'll have to look at doing some of those conversations as well. We're going to move on to our second conversation because yeah, we gotta move it on to this point. And the conversation, yeah, we're having a discussion, a debate, whatever you want to call it, and we've titled this one "Instagram Ruins Relationships." Okay, Instagram ruins relationships, and Instagram kind of represents social media. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be necessarily Instagram itself, but it represents social media. Okay, because I ain't never heard anybody's relationship be ruined by TikTok as of yet. In fact, TikTok is a reckoning. So if you end up on TikTok, it means your relationship has broken and they're about to expose you. So if you know you're on TikTok, it's because you're about to be exposed. Instagram is where it starts to break. Okay. Facebook is where it starts to break in. You know, that's the first early warnings. When someone starts writing a little type on their status, something's happening. Instagram is where, you know, gets a little bit funky, you know, because people enter DMs and stuff like that, and you know, and then it gets to TikTok, and yeah, they're gonna fully expose you. So just be aware, if you end up on TikTok with your ex, yeah, they're exposing you. Okay. So let's get into that conversation. And have a real conversation now. Instagram ruins relationships. Do you agree with this point or do you disagree? I'm gonna take the agreeing point, right? And I'm gonna say it straight. Instagram ridiculously does ruin relationships. And I'm just gonna say this one thing as why. The reason why I say Instagram ruins relationships is because of the 24/7 access that you would ordinarily never have to someone. Meaning I can message you at 3 a.m. and it's actually not against the law. Okay. If someone messages you at 3 a.m. on Instagram, technically that is not a violation. Now, if I did it on WhatsApp, you might say something. But if I do on Instagram, it has a different connotation when you do on Instagram. You know what I'm saying? So, I feel like Instagram kind of breaks certain protocols when it comes to relationships. You know what I'm saying? Like, how it is when people are double tapping, on certain photos. Why can't you just go past the photo and not double tap? Must you double tap everything you like? No, you don't have to. You know what I mean? I think some of you are too free. And my third point as to why I believe, Instagram ruins relationships, because most of you posted that picture not for your man. You didn't post it for your gal. You posted it for next man and next gal. Yeah? Because it's not a private photo. It's a public one. It weren't for me, and it weren't for your man. It weren't for your man, or weren't for your girl. It was for the other people. Okay? So I'm just saying, I personally think, okay, all right, that Instagram ruins relationships because it breaks protocols and breaks conventional relationship rules. So that's my 2 penny pence. I want to see what anyone else says. Does someone disagree? If you do, tell me.
I disagree.
Okay,
I disagree.
tell me why.
Because I can just refute. Is Instagram a person? That's really it. Is Instagram a person? At the end of the day, it's not really the platform that ruins dating. It's people utilizing the platform that ruins dating. At the end of that's how I kind of see it. Because if it's all, again, it comes down to your intent. Instagram was never made to be a dating platform, but people use it as a dating platform, right? Like some people, they see a girl that they like, and obviously it's about integrating social etiquette into your use of Instagram. But people, because they lack self-control, because they're mad wild, because you're bare horny, guys towards girls and girls towards guys, especially if you're feeling a certain type of girl, you'll be like, oh, she looking bare crisp, wouldn't that? Like, let me see if I can try chat up to her. Next thing you know, you see her like, how many people are liking her, think you're like, and guys will do some of the maddest things, girls do some of the maddest things just to chat up a guy. So the rules of social etiquette, right, is broken depending on your intent for a girl or guy that you like. So you can't really blame social media for that. That's you. You just simply utilize social media to how you use it. Like, sure, you could say that Instagram has exasperated the situation, but then it comes down to the people's use of social media and what the intent of it is for in the first place. That's my 2 cents on it.
I love that point. So I'm gonna just throw another point in there. Well, I was just saying I definitely hear you, but come on, let's think about it for real. If you really deep it, right, Instagram has given us the ability to have options you never had. Some of us never had those options, and we still don't. But hey, Instagram will give you the idea that you got many different options at the table. Okay, it gives the illusion. Have you ever gone into a shop and there is like 6 varieties of that biscuit or that chocolate? That same chocolate, there's 6 different varieties. It gets hella confusing. You're like, I haven't even tried all the flavors yet. So which one do I grab? Then suddenly you want to buy all of them. You know what I mean? Like I have to taste all of them, and that is what Instagram has done. I'm just saying that Instagram may not be a person, it may not be alive, but someone created it who was a person. And that particular thing now has given people different options that they never had in the first place. You be here looking at a girl in Brazil and, thinking that you have a chance and you don't, but you do. You know what I mean?
So, Kojo, to add, but to also,
you got a minute to respond, and I'm gonna pass it on. Go
okay,
on. Yeah.
I'll just say, even with that, the illusion, you still got to be able to pay to get them type of options. But when you look at yourself, people will act as if that they can pay to get those options, but they can't. And the whole, you know what, you're texting someone at 3 p.m. That's akin to basically calling somebody at 3 p.m. at night. Still social etiquette. So it's still down to the people. If you allow yourself to believe in the illusion, Instagram didn't do that to you. You did that to yourself. You played yourself.
Who else wants to tackle this? Because I think Instagram has ruined relationships personally, and has been since it's been conception. Yes, Ira.
I think Jeffrey said to me, but I agree with you, not just on Instagram. I agree with Kojo, not just on Instagram, but the idea of social media not ruining relationships, but I believe it exasperates a breach that there already is in how we see relationships. I'll give an example of Instagram specifically. I think the idea of introducing social media to your relationship before it's established is an issue that ruins relationships, because now all of a sudden you've given, and this is now what you were talking about, Kojo, with in terms of access. When you put something on social media, everybody believes they have an opinion about what you've put on there. And so if it's your relationship, there's an expectation now that social media brings, whether you're a YouTube couple or whether you keep posting yourselves on social media, you know, or whether you've taken everybody through your life story on TikTok with your girl or with your guy. There is now an expectation from your followers or the people that see your page, you know, that this is going the full length, right? Even if it's not, and even if it doesn't, you now have this idea that you've posted 100 pictures with this girl, and now everybody can tell when you're no longer together because those 100 pictures have been taken away. So the fact that it gives people a false sense of entitlement to be involved in your relationship and the progression of it is a reason why I think it's ruined relationships. On to my second point, I think the idea that Instagram being a stepping stone to getting somebody's number can also be an issue, because you could be talking to loads of people on Instagram, right? And it's almost like, I know I shouldn't be talking to you, so I'm not going to give you my number, but I'll give you my Instagram. You're still giving them access. And so even it used to be Snapchat. I don't know if people still use Snapchat, but like people will be like, oh, let me have your Snapchat. And the Snapchat is basically now the door that opens you towards this person. It's Snapchat, and then it might be Instagram next, and then it might be number, and then you do WhatsApp or iMessage and FaceTime. But I think it ruins relationships in the sense that it creates almost an unconscious, I shouldn't be in this, but I am in this, in the initial stages of a relationship.
Thank you. I love that. So 2 points I want to bring up as well, which you kind of touched on. And I wanted to say, the first one was obviously the opinions, right? I'm just saying, look, hypothetically speaking, the more you become more, the more you become more of a status on social media, the more difficult it becomes to even date, because people be taking photos, people be posting you up, you know what I'm saying? People be making up stories. You can't even have a conversation with the opposite sex without going, I swear he was flirting with me. Like, you know what I mean? And then next, I'm coming to you as a woman. I'm coming to you as a woman because I heard a conversation. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, it's dangerous out here. You gotta be careful. You know what I mean? And now it puts the other person in a difficult predicament, because how do they, you know what I mean? Like, of course you trust your partner, but like if that now comes to you, it can ruin things. You know what I mean? It sets a seed rather than actually causing an issue straight away. You know what I mean? That's one of the most difficult things, that can happen. Number two, brilliant point that you made there. Okay, I'm just gonna put on the hat, the dark arts. Listen, many a times have you heard a girl said, I can't give my number, and I've said, do you know what? But do you know what? I respect it, and I really do. What's your Instagram? Right? What's your Instagram? No biggie, because Instagram is that segue. It's that medium level. It's really cool because it's like we can see each other's lives and grow. And I'm just waiting for obviously when the breakup happens, and I can say to you, I'm so sorry that you guys broke up, and when can I take you out? You know what I mean? Like Instagram becomes a very deadly place where it's, in fact, Instagram is even more deadly than a number at this point, because I actually get an insight into your life. See, if I had your number, I wouldn't see nothing. because most of us people don't really update our WhatsApps. I mean, apart from the aunties out here who are going to tell you that Jimmy Fox has been taken by the spirits and the Marines. But other than that, the reality is, the reality is, that WhatsApp, you don't update it. So I actually don't get a pathway into your life. You know what I mean? You could ignore my WhatsApp and, you know what I mean? Of course, it might be a little bit rude, but with Instagram, I'm only waiting for you to post up one photo that we can connect on. Like, oh my days, you was there. I was there too. Like, what did you do? Before you know, we struck up a conversation, and next you know, when my name comes, it's like, oh no, he's really cool. When you know how I started. You know what I mean? I'm just saying Instagram is just a dangerous place. And whilst I may, and I agree, this does come back into Jeffrey's point about, yes, the utilization of it. But what I'm saying is, you look, the temptation was never there in the first place. It got put there once Instagram came out. I'm not saying that, look, you would have to go out and physically do this. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Now, you don't have to do that too much now. Now I just need to exchange some information, such as the platform like Instagram, where now I can then enter into your life. If I had your number, if I called it, you could have blocked me. You probably could have just muted me. You could have just said, ignored it. Now I've got Instagram. It's like, it's harmless. I'm going to watch your life, watch how happy you guys are, and I'm going to wait for when you take his photo off your page and he's no longer on the photo feed. And I'm going to be like, well, that relationship's obviously done. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's my last point. Too much information gets shed on Instagram that for those of us who are devils, not me, myself, I've changed, but those of us who are obviously devils in disguise and the wolf in sheep's clothing, we are waiting for when that photo comes down. Oh, we are waiting for when that status goes up about how you retweeted some inspirational speaker who's talking trash about men. I can't wait. Oh, I can't wait for that day. That day is an amazing day when you put on your now, what's that little thing that we have now, little feed thing we have in our DMs now, where you're saying something, I'm up. You're up. It's 12 o'clock. Why are you up? I'm about to enter in. What y'all saying to that? Max, what are you telling me? Just saying, what are you telling me? Just saying.
Yeah, actually say Jaren. But anyway, first thing I would say is to Jeffrey's point, because Jeffrey's right, like opportunity and access doesn't mean results. It takes a person, you know, even with opportunity and access, it takes character. But the truth is, our generation struggles with character, struggle with discipline. So the reality is, does Instagram ruin relationships? Of course it does for many people, because they don't have the character, the discipline, the boundaries, just to limit and restrict their experience of it. A lot of people struggle with grass is greener mentality, and Instagram gives you a front view to someone up to fantasy, to illusion, to, oh, okay. I mean, I do have this here, but oh, like, look what's over there. Like, yeah, if you don't have the discipline, it does give you access to see that, to see how someone else is doing, to see how what you potentially could have, to see the options. So yeah, it does make things a lot harder. And I think of what Ira was saying, the opinions can be hard, and the influence, because if you think about it, people technically even take Instagram to bed. You could be in your bed and you're on your phone. So now, is it 2 people in the relationship, or is it 3? Or is it 5? How many people are influencing this union? And in that respect, if your relationship is supposed to be monogamous, then yes, it doesn't have the capacity for 5, 6, 7, 70 people. And yes, it will ruin your relationship. So I think there are some points that people just have to realize that, okay, cool, am I still in monogamy? Do I still subscribe to that? Because there's a couple people here. And so those are points just to think about. But it ultimately does come down to your character and your discipline. But your reality is that while character and discipline are good things, if you don't have it, you kind of need to restrict or change your relationship with Instagram so you can have a relationship in real life.
Listen, I love that. I love that, Max. I really do. I really love the fact that you talk about character. Okay. Yeah. And I really do appreciate that. But not everyone's Joseph here. Okay. Let's be honest. Okay. Many of us would not have run. Let's be very honest here. Most of us would have not have run. What Joseph had is extremely, I believe he had the gift of faith. Okay. Not everyone has the gift of faith. Most of us would have been slumped by Potiphar's wife. Okay, fine ass chick coming after you like that, grabbing upon you every day. You would have been finished. You'd have given in. Your story would have been written in the Bible. Okay, so we would have had a different story. All right. So the reality is, most human beings have a limit to their self-discipline. All right. And if I'm of the ilk of trying to knock something down, I'm gonna keep knocking on that door. So the fact that Instagram, of course, is a character issue, but the reality is that if that app wasn't there, I wouldn't have that access. I really wouldn't.
But you would
because
still have that issue. You'd still have that issue.
not
Yes.
You'd still
necessarily.
have that character issue. You would still have the wandering eye.
The temptation is very different, though.
But you would it would still be there.
Facts like that.
It's just very different. Can I be in your bed? What? Not you personally, sorry, but sorry. Can you take me to bed when it's a number thing? You know what I mean? If it's your number thing, can you take someone to bed? You rarely don't, because again, it is a context of what we consider to be illegal now. And Instagram makes it legal for me to enter the DM at 3 a.m. and it's not considered bad. When you're texting away, you're not asking your partner who you're texting away. But if you see what's up screen and you see a name like Joel and you're like, oh, Joel, you might consider it a different way. I'm just saying, Instagram just be giving us that thing. So what are you saying, Mac?
No, I hear you. I think the reality is it comes down to, if you don't have the discipline, it has a greater likelihood of ruining what you have. Realistically, that's it.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, Kojo. I think you're basically saying that accessibility, because Instagram, it creates a whole bunch of accessibility for people. Like, we weren't made to deal with this type of knowledge. The fact that so many women, you can be preying so many women, like. It, like, I can admit to it. I can admit to the fact that that it is hard, especially when you find women that are attractive, especially in certain poses, bruv. Certain poses that I be seeing on the TL, like, I'm like, it's difficult. Like, it's honestly difficult, even for people with character and discipline. The temptation of seeing the potential of what could be there, and you're praying it in your mind over and over again. I'm not gonna lie, it'll make you feel some type of way. It'll make you feel some type of way. And I think another issue, catfishes on Instagram as well. People that pretend, that could also be another variable that ruins like people's dating prospects up on Instagram. People lying to simply obtain somebody else's number. That's another issue. So there are liars, there are crazy people out on Instagram and stuff like that. I still maintain the idea that it still takes people who are using the platform, but I will say, because now Instagram has now become part and parcel of life in general, and because people have so much to say when it comes to opinions, and then people live vicariously off from other people as well, where now you're looking at the grass is green on the other side, comparing, if only I can live the lifestyle that the other person's living, it is going to have an influence in relationships. So yeah.
JJ, talk to me. Oh, you're muted, bro.
I don't disagree with anything, anyone has said. I think it's all been, on the money, and it's part of the issues that we have, but we can look at it from different angles. One of the things that I'll say is, because you mentioned validation, I mean, there is a group of people who are just pretending they don't receive validation from Instagram. It's a lie. They are posting for
the devil.
Do you know why I say that? It's simply because when they realize it starts to affect their mental health, this is when they tell the truth. There's people that I followed, and I followed them because of what they was doing in business. I followed them because, they was going to do great things in the community. But they let Instagram get to their heads, and it became more about how they look. It became more about getting the validation for posting certain pictures. And I had to unfollow, because that's not why I followed you in the first place. But they admitted that they let it get to their heads. They had to come off Instagram because it got too much to them. I was talking to someone who every 2-3 months had to come off Instagram because she allowed, the edited version of life, just like reality TV, to influence her thinking, of herself and her surroundings, etc. And it made her a person that's difficult to deal with. So in that sense, because she's now more unhappy with her life, of course, it's going to be very hard to be with that person in any sense of relationship in the first place. And one of the things that you mentioned, Kojo, is access. So for me, right, I had Instagram maybe like 3-4 years after everyone else did. And it was on private up until 2 years ago, when I thought, if I'm going to build this platform, this ministry, I have to be accessible. Now, with the women that I've been with, they've either had no Instagram or it's been on private. I can say, yeah, cool. The pictures that they posted wasn't reckless pictures, wasn't questionable pictures. But one thing you mentioned, Coach, even if someone has a private account, there is somebody watching and waiting for an opportunity. All they have done is go through the friends route. And because, like you said, the access that they have, they don't need your number. The Instagram is enough. All they have to do is respond to a certain story, respond to a certain post, fire emoji, heart shape. All they have to do is meet you at the right time. And you have ladies out here that will say, oh, I want to go cinema today. Why are you posting that on your stories? You know why? Because you want a particular guy or one of these particular guys to say, let me take you out, babes. Let's go. Let me do it. Let me be the champion. Let me do it. That's what you want. So when people argue this point, say, no, it doesn't. I understand it's down to the individual and their own choices. But a lot of people live fake lives. They just pretend. Like, a lot of people are not real with themselves when it comes to Instagram. Like, just be honest on what you're doing, especially if you're not using it for business. Just be honest about what you're doing, because you have to be honest about those influences, because it does, like Max saying, it does negatively influence a lot of people's perceptions on what is real, what they feel that they deserve, or what opportunities they actually have. Like when people argue, oh, you know, of all these guys wanting to ABC, listen, men will say anything just to sleep with a woman, right? We know this already. We can admit this. So what you're getting is a lot of sexual attention, but you're not necessarily getting attention from men who are going to treat you correctly. Same thing like guys, when guys are flashing the cash. Okay, you're getting a lot of female attention, but how many times these guys want to complain about gold digger? Bro, what are you displaying? What are you displaying? Like, what do you expect? That's why when some people say, oh, you know, I shouldn't be treated because of what I post. For me personally, I would say to people, grow up. Because when you're posting an advertisement of a specific thing, you're going to get the returns from that in the first place. We live in a society. And, you know, I look at some parts of social media just like reality TV. Like, to me, it's of the same mind, where it's like it's just to entertain something, just to entertain what? Just to make you feel good, just for you can laugh, you can be excited, you can be happy. It's a place where you can feel loved, where you can feel wanted. That addiction, to me, is as dangerous as porn, as dangerous as drugs, as dangerous as alcohol. So you have to really pay attention to how you operate in social media and how the person that you're with operates on social media. Because all it takes is the wrong message. All it takes is the wrong post to come up. Then people will start thinking, my man this, oh, my man that, my missus this, my missus that. Then all of a sudden they start ruining it. And that, to me, is just, people just need to be careful. Like, I understand social media is a dangerous place, but you have to make sure, it's hard, it's easier said than done, but you have to make sure where you are in life, that you're not easily influenced by what social media has become. Because you don't want those things to ruin relationships. We've seen many couples, I think someone mentioned couples. Many couples have been ruined because of what they put out there on social media. Many people behind the scenes are not disciplined persons. So because of social media, they've been exposed for their foolishness. You know, would they have continued in their relationship with no social media? Well, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there you go.
True.
Social media has exposed their foolishness. Social media sometimes lies. Some people end relationships because of the false information that's out there. You know, sometimes social media is what amplifies things. If it was private, you'll be cool, you move on in life. Because it's social media, it's amplified, you want to save yourself the embarrassment. And like you mentioned, Coach, let me talk to you as a woman. Listen, some people tell you the truth, some people will lie, some people have an ulterior motive, but it's because of that access. That's it. It's the access that's dangerous. And before I stop as well, Coach, you said something that resonated with me. The fact that it's social media all of a sudden makes certain conversations okay. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's the same as anything else, because you know what that person wants. Just because they don't have your number doesn't mean it's any less of a blow. So you have to be vigilant. You can't be entertaining people just because. Like, you have to be very vigilant. Why are they, if accounts on private, why are they following you? Where did they come across you from? If they're saying, hey, why are they saying hey for? Do you have a business? What's going on? What's happening? You can't say, oh, because it's Instagram. It doesn't mean anything. It means something. Goes back to my original point. There are plenty of people who will pretend to be your friends, waiting for the right opportunity. Yes, Kojo, you pointed to yourself. Thank you. Well done. And they would have slide in
this conversation, guys.
There you go. And that's the truth. Do you know what I mean? That's the truth of the matter. So you have to be vigilant. Like, we live in a different world now. You can't just keep pretending social media isn't an issue. Yeah, it's really down to how you use it, really. But we can't pretend that we as human beings don't like to abuse things that are meant to be a benefit to us. Like, we are our biggest problems.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to be honest.
And that's why I'm saying about Instagram has ruined relationships, because it provides the opportunity. And that's the biggest issue. Listen, look, do you know a lot of men wouldn't cheat, but if they have the opportunity, they will cheat. This is the biggest difference. Most men can't cheat on their own. They cheat because of opportunity. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? When the opportunity is provided, that's when the cheating happens. Most of us can't cheat for nothing. Some of you don't know how to cheat for anything. Nobody wants you. You understand? But the opportunity arises and you cheat. You know what I'm saying? But in the same thing with Instagram, Instagram provides opportunity for things that would never ordinarily take place, right? I would never ordinarily have an album into your life to see what's going on with you on a day-to-day basis. I would have to literally physically meet you and speak to you. You know, just think about your WhatsApp. You might I have over 400, 500 people on contacts. I speak to about 10. You know what I'm saying? It's about 10. But if I put up a post on Instagram, do you know how many people are going to reply? When I put the little, what's that little thing in the inbox thing now? That little memo thing is working, you know, it works wonders. Anyway, listen, so back to my reality. When I post a little question like saying, hey, what do you think about relationships, or what do you think about daddy issues? This new feature that's been put onto Instagram is a relationship destroyer, because the amount of people that enter your DMs, it's like, oh, that was a question. Let me enter it and answer. You don't realize that as those conversations will never ordinarily happen outside of Instagram or outside of social media. Social media presents this platform of opportunity, and that is what most people are missing when it comes to being unhappy, okay, and leaving their marriages, leaving their relationships, and cheating. And all those things are based oftentimes around opportunity. Now, I'm not saying that you can go to work and have the same situation, but again, a lot of the times it's afforded opportunity. And I think with Instagram, it's affording way too much opportunity to be unhappy and to be in situations that you shouldn't be in. And of course, yes, someone messaging you at 3 a.m. is something. But what if it's a funny meme? What if it's a funny meme that just came up and I just watched it? You want to wait till 9 a.m. to send it to you? No, I'm going to send it to you now. I'm going to send it to you now. Like, oh my God, that cat was laughing. Look at this at 3 a.m. And okay, you might not see it till 9 a.m., but I'm going to send it at 3. Oh, you might be awake, you know, like Max said, on your bed, and you see it, and now you're cackling in your bed. And now your partner with one eye open is like, why are you cackling? You know what I mean?
So
like,
coach,
you just, huh?
That's so, coach. If by that premise, I want to ask you, would you say that Instagram, by what you're saying, would you say that social media like Instagram is exploitive by nature then? Does it have an exploitative element?
I think it is. My explore page it doesn't make sense. You know, it should be filled with Bible scriptures, but it's not.
Oh my!
But yes, it is. Exploitive, I think.
No, that's true. I think if what you're saying is true, I mean, I do understand that, because I think Instagram, people's use of it has now become a place where it's like instant gratification because of what you are liking, what you're posting, what you're looking at as well. I think also due to the fact of the algorithms as well, it's crazy that something that you are searching up over and over again, the next thing you know, Instagram is also finding up recommendations for you to look at the similar type of thing as well. So that could also be a means of exploitation, because now it's like there's a whole bunch of technology behind it. I think the times have changed, but I say the times have changed, but principles remain the same. But people just don't apply the principles anymore when it comes to social etiquette, when it comes to dealing with people, because we as human beings have not evolved to the point to deal with the level of technology, to deal with so much access to people. Like, so I think it still comes down to self-discipline. But then, as you rightly said, none of
this.
Yeah.
What about this?
Yeah.
Now our phones are listening to our conversations. You know how women are. They like to complain about us men. It's normal. Yeah, and the men like to complain about the women too. What happens when you're complaining about your wife to your boy, like having a normal conversation? Like, you know, we all complain. We all have a little conversation, a little bit of a rant, a little bit of event. You know, it's been 5 years in the marriage, you know, like, you know, she's annoying me, but it's a normal conversation, right? Yeah. Next, you know, YouTube is now recommending how to leave your wife. You don't know the stress that you're feeling at this point. You don't know the stress that you're feeling at that point. It's on. It's not you don't know the stress. Social media is doing rough. Yes, Ira. What are you saying? It's social media is doing rough. Max,
this is what I was gonna chime in on, the idea of, yes, us having personal discipline, but it's also to understand that we need to apply wisdom in the sense of understanding that this social media platform was actually created by a human. There weren't no robot that created this. So a human has created this with full understanding of what it's capable of doing. And so if let's be real, because these people that are doing the codes and the algorithms and all that, it's people that are doing it. Of course, you know, they may be, you know, there's AI and all that sort of stuff. I don't know too much about that, but that's extra stuff. But there's actually people who are taking the time to sit down and remember, we look at Mark Zuckerberg and he created Facebook for a specific purpose, right? But when these things start to, like an Instagram or a TikTok, when they start to get created and don't have certain restrictions, it's because the person who's creating it knows that there's two options. Somebody's going to use it for the right way, somebody's going to use it for the wrong way. But the person who's creating it, we have to understand that this is not their fault, even though it is partly their fault. They're creating it with the understanding that we are going to abuse it, because just like with everything, as human beings, we abuse things. But it's the understanding that if Instagram isn't going to make these restrictions, I need to have my own personal restrictions. So, for example, I think it was Max or Jay that talked about having a private Instagram. You know, if you got a private Instagram and you're actually assessing who actually comes on that, rather than, oh yeah, let me get more followers. It's like, no, okay, who are you? Do I know you? Do you get what I mean? But because it's social media, we have this false illusion that we have to be social with everybody. And so if anyone enters your DMs, you feel like you're compelled to respond. You know, if somebody likes your pic, you feel compelled to like their pic back. So it's this whole idea that you can be publicly, secretly in another relationship while you're in one, because somebody likes your pic and you're just liking it back and say, well, it's a courtesy, but you know the motive that's inside your heart. She likes your pic, you have a girl, but you're like, you know what? I mean, I like what I'm seeing too. So it's this it creates this false sense of security, because it's like, well, I've got an excuse, you know, oh, my finger slipped, or, you know, this or that, you know, but it's real. We've heard people make these excuses before. Oh, I didn't mean to like that, or oh yeah, you know, I don't really look at what I double tap, like those things. But it's creating an environment and an ecosystem where there actually really is no accountability on anyone's parts, really, because social media, as in the creators of it, don't have any accountability, because, well, it's dependent on the user and how the user uses it. The user will say, well, I can't control when someone messages me. You know, sometimes I can't control what I like and what I don't like. And so social media creates that lack of accountability, because you can say what you want, do what you want, and as long as it's not against a certain agenda, you're fine. Do you get what I mean? And so it ruins relationships in that sense, because although we have the access, it does then create a desire, because you're seeing it so often. Like, it makes it feel normal. Like, oh well, you know, it's just a like. You know, well, she liked my pic, and you know, she didn't try to DM me, so I can like hers, and it's not going to mean anything. But it's without knowing the unconscious that you only like that pic back because, you get what I mean? You're trying to create a conversation. As we know, as guys, most of the time, if you like a woman's pic, often the response is for her to either like yours back, and when she liked yours back, that's then a cue for you to go in the DMs. So it's almost like creating this false sense of, you know, oh, you know, we're going to the next stage of our relationship because you liked my picture back, and it does really take out the whole protocol and the whole tradition of building real relationships. But in finalizing, I actually met my fiance on Instagram. So although I'm against Instagram and it does ruin relationships, there is a
Hallelujah.
positive spin. So, but I did meet her through her twin sister, so I guess it's a different story. But yeah, there is positive ways that it can be used. However, in general, I think it's the pits of hell.
Can I say this as well? Yeah, I'm with you on that. You know, it's all good. I'm with you on that because my missus.
Wait, Jay, Matt's gonna go. Max was gonna go.
Oh,
first.
sorry,
Next.
go on.
My bad.
No problem. That's hilarious, Ira. But on something you were saying before about social media, Instagram, and when it comes into the relationship, I think is really crucial, because if it comes in too early, it's more likely to sabotage, I think, in the sense that even if you think pre-relationship, because it's people that are going to be in that relationship, if they are dependent on Instagram before they get into a relationship, they have to carry that in. So I think the actual sabotage isn't necessarily always happening in the relationship. It can even happen before that. And it takes me back to, this is a Bible reference, but the Garden of Eden. And if you think about why sin had to come in that early, so that it could destroy everything that would follow after. And even another point is that if you look at how the serpent spoke to Eve, and he placed in her this idea that God was withholding. And the truth is, God and Eve, it seems, had a good relationship before that. But from when you start to think someone is withholding something, or when you start to compare, or when you start to think something's missing, that can really cause a void, an issue, trigger a response that is really unhelpful in a relationship. And so Instagram here is a platform full of information for you to compare to, and comparison can kill. So from that angle, yes, Instagram could ruin a relationship, because if I'm thinking, oh, it was Valentine's Day and we had a really modest time, I go up on Instagram and I'm seeing, oh, but she went to Dubai. Oh, but there was roses all over the room. Oh, but there was balloons. And then I'll be looking back at this guy like, that doesn't really cut it though. But before, I was fine. I was content. I was happy with the experience that we had. But now I've seen all of the other ways that people have experienced love. I'm thinking, no. So I do think that comparison, the fact that we have access to weighing up our relationship, even though her man has completely different means, their background's completely different, his roses are actually an apology, they're not an act of love, and all that context that's missing. You know what I mean? There's so many parts that I think are that add so much context. But essentially, yes, Instagram can ruin a relationship if we take it out of the personal point, and if we just think about the platform and how it influences people, how it influences our behavior, and how when we start behaving badly, that is going to ruin a relationship. So if Instagram is causing us or encouraging us to behave badly, those two people that behave badly then join and try and form a marriage or try and form a relationship, that's going to be chaotic. So there's definitely something in Instagram for sure.
There's something in the Instagram waters. You see? She said it. Jay.
However, I'm going to agree with something else that you said, Max. There's something in the waters of how you operate in your normal life anyway. Because a place like Instagram, WhatsApp, or whatever, there are some people, they can be one way and it changes them because, wow, what's going on here? Like a kid in a candy store, right? But there are some people that are only operating in Instagram, social media, or whatever, just in an amplified way. This is how they are. And I think one of the words that we're all saying, but in a different way, is boundaries. I think someone actually mentioned boundaries. So the truth is, a lot of people operate differently when they're single than when they are in a relationship. It is very hard to operate one way when you're single and now that you're in a relationship, put the boundaries in place that you should have had beforehand. This is where the issues of access come into it. Because if you haven't had those boundaries beforehand, those people who you give access to, for the reasons that you give access to them, they're still going to do that. And you're not necessarily going to shut down things in a proper way. And this is why it does ruin relationships at times, because before you get to a place where you're shutting down things in a proper way, you're probably going to make a few mistakes. You're probably going to allow things that you shouldn't. You're probably going to, your spouse is probably going to need to have a conversation with you, as in, why do you think this is okay? Because it raises questions. And when it comes to that easy access, if this is what you're used to doing, naturally you're gonna feel okay. You know, it doesn't mean anything. I can handle people. I'll put them in their place, etc. Whereas it doesn't matter. Like we know, like the whole issue with you know, the whole Operation Guy Best Friend, or that guy that, you know, that's in the past. Look back, she even laughing because you know what I'm talking about. There you go. Do you know what I mean? Like, listen, there are people who are just simply there, and if you keep giving them if you keep giving them access with the excuse, they're only going to do one thing. How many times have people got with the man or woman that they told you not to worry about, for example? Oh, don't worry, there's someone that's on here. Oh, don't worry. And this is where, and this is why I say, like, how you are beforehand often shows how you are going to be inside. But it's very difficult to just shut things off. So you have to have that wisdom beforehand. You have to have that discipline. You have to be ready and say, nah, shut it down. I'll even give one example, right? There was someone I used to deal with a very, very long time ago. Now she's married with kids, doesn't even live in the country. I think it was early last year. She messaged me again, easy access. And she started reminiscing about us being together. I said, what are you doing? Like, are you, what are you doing?
Not in the DMs. Call me.
Bro, no, don't call me. Don't call me. And then
you try the evidence.
Hold on, I'm gonna land. And then she said, because I think I had like a gym thing up, right? And then she said, I was just minding my business until I saw you doing work in the gym. And I said, the devil is a liar. I blocked her from that moment. See, this is what access does.
Smart
in my mind, all I was thinking is, imagine how the husband, I don't know what the husband's doing, but imagine how he must feel if he found this out. Like, imagine my wife doing that behind my back. Like, I'll be like, what? Like, what's, and this is where social media makes it seem like people are not mentally or emotionally cheating. But it is exactly that. Just because it's not over the phone doesn't mean anything. This is what people are doing through Instagram. So I think you mentioned, Max, about you think you're in a monogamous relationship, but really you're in a polyamorous one, or whatever it was called these days. Because there are a lot of people who are mentally and emotionally cheating because of social media. They're getting gratification from social media instead of facing their relationship and dealing with that. You know, they're getting validation from the people who are sliding in the DMs. Like, some people get validation from rejecting those people in the DMs. You know what I mean? That's how messed up we become as a culture, where we feed off things that we shouldn't. This is why we need to operate more carefully, not just for yourself, but pay attention to who you're with. Right? Look at their lifestyle beforehand, and then you can make an informed judgment. Because, like, I'm going to say it again, it is very hard to just, whatever you're doing as a single person, to then just turn it off when you're in a relationship. It's very hard to do that. You have to be a person who is doing that anyway to make it easy. If not, it's going to cause problems.
See what you're saying there, bro. How does she see? She saw because of the Instagram. She had to end up blocking her. That's what I'm telling you. Instagram is the ruiner. She would have never seen the photo album had she not been on Instagram. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say. She would have never had that. You know what I mean? She should have been blind calling you. Should have been blind calling you, saying about reminiscing, right? What was she gonna say? You know what I mean? But when she saw the muscles and saw the shirt and said, this is not what I saw when I was with him. Now I'm seeing some muscles coming out. Now she's calling you to say, wait, what's going on? Let me see what the temptation on this side is saying. Did you know what I'm saying? See, that's what I'm trying to say to you, bro. Like, yo, again, Instagram is doing it. If she had your number, she probably wouldn't be able to call you like that and just be like, oh, hey. No, it's because Instagram gave her the access to see you in a different light. You understand? She can see you doing things. Imagine if you see your partner winning on Instagram. You might want to message. And one thing we haven't. That's the last thing, and I'll let you go, Jeff. The last thing that people have not spoken about is the attention you get that can be multiplied by Instagram is completely different, right? If your status goes from 1,000 people following you to now 100,000 are now following you, do you know the kind of DMs you're getting? Do you know the kind of thirsty individuals that are entering your DMs to supply the attention to the ego that is needed? Okay, not needed, wanted. But do you know? I'm just saying. Listen, you know, it happens. I ain't gonna lie to you. When you go viral, it happens. So I'm saying to you, when that happens to you, it's a different type of ball game. You would never ordinarily have that if the social media, Instagram wasn't around. What people gonna call you when they don't have your number? You know what I mean? Like, it's so different. So I'm just saying, you know, it's very difficult. But go on, Jeffrey. You said you wanted to say something. Go for it.
Now, I also wanted to say that yes, it's true that Instagram, it makes for easy access for people to do things that they will not normally do in this digital era. The accessibility and the types of communication we have is far different than the days of old, far different, right? But it still requires people to even use these things. I think people don't recognize the responsibility or the power that they have to either choose or not to choose to do certain things. And boundaries have to be established, like Jay said. For instance, like when it comes to Instagram, I turn my notifications off because I don't want to feel like I have to respond to every single notification. Left to my own devices, I know I'm going to feel a certain type where I'm going to have to respond to that ding, ding every time, or even on WhatsApp. So it comes down to establishing those boundaries from the jump, so that way you don't have to deal with the onset of people calling you or But because I think people don't do that and they don't take those steps, it's easy for them to be swayed by people talking to them in that type of way. It's easy. I think because we don't understand the power. I think we underestimate the power of social media, thinking we can handle it. But because we know we can't handle it, we don't put barriers or boundaries in place to begin with.
Love it.
Last points, guys. Last points. Anyone have any last points before we jump off? Keep it nice and short, but last point.
Let me make a last one, but let me be positive. So I've been quite negative about social media, right? So my missus, technically we met at work, over 10 years ago, but we didn't really speak. But she messaged me on Facebook, and that's how we started speaking, and that's how we ended up getting together. Okay, so it was a positive. Then obviously we broke up. Many years went by, etc. I then found her on LinkedIn. Do you see where I'm going with this, right? And I started having conversations with her. Okay, for reasons we didn't talk again, and then we started talking after about 7-8 months, just normal talk conversations. But something changed when she reactivated her Instagram, added me, and liked pictures. I don't know what changed. I don't know what it was, but it was something that changed in the air. And from that day, we haven't stopped talking since. And that was a year. Keep your hand down. What's this? No money. Keep your hand down. Something changed. So, and it's been over a year now. So, in a positive light, there are times where that can happen. Like Ira, you said you met your fiance through social media effectively. So, there are times where it can happen. But ultimately, the likelihood is if you allow social media to really influence you, I mean, you're going to ruin a lot of things that you're trying to create. Like, these things are far and few between. Like, so don't think this is an example of how everyone's life can be. The truth is, no. It's distracting. It causes problems, and it brings question to you as a person. That's it.
I'm just saying, listen, it is dangerous out here. You ever scroll too deep in someone's page and mistakenly liked a photo? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's how social media will get you. You just be you don't mean to scroll. No. Wait. You don't mean to scroll. Listen, you don't mean to scroll as long as you did. Like, that's what I'm trying to say to you. Look, social media will catch you. You don't mean to scroll as long as you did, and before you realize that you're in December 2019, and then you end up liking a photo by mistake. Your finger slips, and you liked a photo. Your relationship is done. Your relationship's done. What's that? That girl's gonna come to your girl as I'm coming to you as a woman. Now she's coming to you as a woman. I saw your boy liking my photo from 2019, or she screenshots it and puts it on TikTok now. You know what I mean? Like, you just don't want to have those situations. You know what I mean? Unnecessary. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's hella
my friends, use social media. Don't let social media use you.
I'm
just saying. Any last words from Mac, Ira? Any last words?
I would say, just lastly, as it pertains to social media and relationships, one thing I said to my fiance was that I'm about privacy and not secrecy. So our relationship is not a secret, but it is private, which means that the people that need to know will know until we get engaged, and then the world can know. But it was essential for me to maintain that privacy so that we could build without any external influences or any external pressures, or, oh my gosh, when are you guys getting married when we've been together for like 3 weeks? Like, we don't need none of that. So it was very important, privacy instead of secrecy, and even how you use social media can be the same as well.
Mac?
No, it's all been said, but at the end of the day, social media, Instagram is powerful. So bear that in mind unless you plan to be overpowered.
Okay, respect it. Okay, well, listen. Woo, Chile. It's been a good conversation. Went deep earlier on, pause. And now we've come to this great point where we had a nice little debate around social media. Okay. So listen, audience, thank you for turning up and showing out with us on the British panel. Make sure, as our brother said, that you don't let social media use you. You understand? Yeah. And be sensible. What's acceptable behavior, whether it's social media, whether it's not social media. As much as I've joked a lot today, a lot of it is true. Some of you be doing this stuff. Okay. So I need y'all to behave. Okay. Don't enter my DMs unless you have money and cash apps. Okay. But so listen. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe. No, I'm not even joking about the cash apps, guys. Listen, keep the cash apps coming. I appreciate some of y'all. Y'all be really spending up some money on me. Okay, all right. It's helping me dine and dine these other women. No jokes. But listen, make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button. Am I sharing the cash apps, sir?
Yeah,
No.
the panelists get.
I work for these tips. No. These tips. You know what I'm doing? I'm shaking my ass for these tips. You don't understand. You see my TikTok.
Cheerful giver now. He likes cheerful giver.
He actually is.
Yes, let them give to you. Are you shaking your ass on your chest? Let them shake your ass just for that. When you start doing it, you can get some cash apps too, then, son. All right. Then I can share the tips with you. All right. Listen, make sure you guys like, share, subscribe. And next week you'll put your cash apps in your profile so they can see it. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Click on the bell button, guys, for notification of the uploads. We'll see you again tomorrow night for Married at First Sight, and we'll be back next week with another enthralling conversation once more again. Hey, listen.
Not on my watch. Not on my watch.
On my watch, okay? Don't play the social media game, okay? Appreciate you guys.